What do you think of when you hear the term slasher film? Do you think of John Carpenter's Halloween, Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street, maybe even think of Friday the 13th? Or perhaps, like most goers, you think of the granddaddy of them all, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. So I actually got to watch Psycho for the first time about a week ago. Don't murder me. I'm I still consider myself a big horror fan, even though I hadn't seen Psycho until, like I said, recently. Of course, I was extremely familiar with it, being a movie buff, and I had heard about it a lot over the years, especially through watching Halloween and all those other horror movies that had kind of stemmed from that. But really, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho is the one that started it all. But here's the big question. Sure, it was scary back then. A lot of people, terrified a lot of people, and it's stuck pretty well in history as one of the greatest horror movies, if not one of the greatest movies of all time. But is it still scary? So we start with a character played by Janet Leigh, a very big actress at the time. She's actually the mother of Jamie Lee Curtis, which I didn't know until watching the movie just before. And Janet Leigh is this secretary, and she overhears her boss talking about this money that he has stored away, and she decides to take it and run away. That way she can start a new life with her boyfriend. So we start with this character who's sort of in this, on the run, and in this situation, and right away the movie picks up with the tension, because you're afraid if she's going to get caught, because there's this cop that's kind of suspicious of her because she's acting weird. And I mean, why wouldn't she? She's got thousands of dollars. I forget what the actual amount is, but it's a lot of money in the 60s, and probably still a decent amount today. And so after she sort of kind of gets away from the cop, she enters in this big rainstorm, and she decides to stop somewhere. And while she's driving, and this is one of my favorite parts of the movie, oddly enough, when she's sort of driving through the rain, because you understand the character is kind of going through this inner turmoil, and there's a hecticness about it, and the weather sort of reflects that. But off in the distance, you see this glow, and the camera kind of cuts back between her and this thing, and off in the distance, and the glow starts to get bigger and bigger, and it says Bates Motel. Even though it's just this white glow, it's got this creepiness to it. And of course, the house off in the distance is also almost ominous, overlooking this motel. And she decides to stay there, and it's supposedly owned by this guy named Norman Bates and his mother. Norman Bates is played by Anthony Perkins, and he seems nice enough. Like, I mean, he's kind of awkward at first, but she sort of gets this sense about him. You could tell she sort of gets this sense about him when she sort of has this dinner with him, and she sees that he's a taxidermist, and there are these animals all over his office, and it's kind of creepy. And then it leads to probably one of the most famous scenes in slasher history. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you're probably familiar with the shower scene from Psycho. And of course, I had seen it a bazillion times, referenced in all sorts of other media as well. In this scene, this scene sort of defies the expectations, not only back then but for now. Typically, when you have a lead character, that lead character is supposed to survive. She's supposed to be safe, because we've been following her this entire time, and we've been invested and worried about her situation, and she gets killed off. And it's so brilliant and well done. if it had been any other director at the time, it probably wouldn't have worked. It probably would have flopped. But Alfred Hitchcock builds it up in such a way that this mysterious figure, I won't spoil it, this mysterious figure kills her, and then Norman hides the body, and now we're left with this guy who's questionable. We're not sure if he's the killer or if it's his mom or if it's somebody else. And so you realize that you're left with this unstable guy who is now the main character because he has to hide this body, and he sort of has to deal with not only the cops but her friends and boyfriend as well. So he sort of takes over the role as the main character, and you're left with, like I said, this emotionally disturbed person. I mean, how it's still unusual and brilliant to this day. And the big reveal at the end is when this moment came, I kind of saw it coming, but the way it was shown was so shocking, and it genuinely creeped me out. Some old movies don't hold up that fright level as well, but I think Psycho is one of those movies that's absolutely timeless. Like, this movie will always be scary and always be relevant. And the music is absolutely breathtaking. Ever since I finished the movie, I've been listening to the music while I write, and it's been extremely helpful because the music it's never too busy, but at the same time it's got a lot going on, and there's a lot of fanfare to it as well. And like the scene I referenced earlier where she's driving through the rain, that's probably my favorite part. I know there's the whole like violin thing when she's being killed in the shower. I know it's iconic for that, but I think during the atmospheric parts of the film is when the soundtrack really shines. And the marketing campaign, I kind of looked into that too because I was curious as to how the trailer was, because a lot of older trailers they're kind of weird in my opinion. I mean, they're different from what we have today, but this one, literally, it was 6 minutes of Alfred Hitchcock himself walking through the set, not just the set, but the actual scenes, and explaining what had happened. Like, he kind of gives away the entire plot, minus the twist at the end, and like, he talks about all the deaths. And he also sort of explains that nobody will be let into the theater after the movie has started. Boy, I wish they would do that more often today, because it's annoying. Am I right? I hate it when people... I mean, if you have to go to the bathroom, it's fine. But if you're walking in 10 minutes and the movie's started, it's a distraction. But Hitchcock knew that you had to start Psycho from beginning to end. Even with just watching the shower scene, you don't get the full impact because of what it means, because of the transition it symbolizes in the film. And the marketing campaign was brilliant because he did something that was not only unheard of back then, it's also unheard of now. I mean, when's the last time we saw... So we've seen directors do introductions for the trailer or whatever at the movie theater, but when have we seen a trailer that's 5 to 6 minutes long and has the director going scene by scene describing all the deaths? He was that confident in this movie that he knew it would be something special and something frightening. It was almost like he was almost saying, I dare you to go see this movie. I've given you all the details. I dare you to go witness it. So Psycho is a very important movie. I think it's one of those movies that everybody should watch. It's like Jaws or Lawrence of Arabia. You have to see it. And sadly, I haven't really seen a whole lot of other Hitchcock movies except for The Birds and now Psycho. But immediately after watching this film, I bought a collection that had 37 of his movies. So I'm excited to get more into Hitchcock because I love his style. I'm interested in seeing not only his other horror and thriller movies, but some of his other stuff too. Because Hitchcock is just he's brilliant, and I know that just from seeing his interviews and reading about him and watching The Birds and now Psycho. And I'm excited to kind of watch Bates Motel too because I'm curious about what happened with Norman and Norma, his wife. His mother. Because it's obvious that it was a poisonous but yet sort of loving relationship because she was very controlling of Norman. But the movie is thrilling from beginning to end. It's one of those on your edge on the edge of your seat, and it's the father of slasher films for a reason. It's genuinely terrifying. And again, like Alfred Hitchcock, I dare you to watch this movie. I dare you.